Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Off Lane here on the Funny Fucker server. Um, it has been quite a bit of time since we have recorded one of these videos. A couple of months at least, just about under a year. I wanted to do another check-in, because I have a couple of things I've wanted to do for a little bit. While also chatting about certain things. So I thought, what a good time as any to start it up again. Um, One of the big things I wanted to chat about, more specifically, is a very interesting concept to me, at least. Um, Now, as Minecraft has changed, um, and of course, its audience has grown up with it. Um, I've seen a lot of people, more so recently, talk about the concept of Minecraft being, um, aged towards, uh, a certain demographic, which I do agree. I do think Mojang tries to make it a game in which in which everyone is able to, um, interact with it in a way that is family friendly. Um, but it also begs a very interesting question. Because um, on one hand, you will have a uh, Minecraft server like the Funny Fucker server, for example, um, where not only is it primarily an adult space, most of the streams. Hold on, I gotta clear my throat. Most of the streams. Oh, thank you for waiting. Most of the streams that take place on the Funny Fucker server are intended for mature audiences. Um, and it's very weird because I've seen people argue. Now, I will admit I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a straw man argument. Um, but I've seen plenty of people go out of their way to argue that the Funny Fucker server, in essence, or not the Funny Fucker server, but servers like that, where it's more adult oriented, are uh, either they should be uh, oriented towards all ages, or they shouldn't exist. Now, like I said, very likely a straw man argument. I wouldn't be surprised if I was making up someone to get angry at. Because that kind of conversation doesn't really happen anymore. Well, I mean, it does, but mostly it's done by either children that want to get access to adult spaces, or adults who want to include children in their adult spaces just a little bit too much. You know who I'm talking about. But it's a very weird question because when you sit online and you involve yourself in different communities, the first thing that you realize after having a community online for so long is the concept that um, most people, um, whether that is through like just normal social media or through certain game communities or otherwise, they all end up being for a certain age group. And there are a couple that are for all age groups that are intended for everyone, but also end up getting a more mature community regardless, and vice versa. A good example of this is there is a there's a game on Roblox, which is definitely not the best example of this, but you know what I mean. There's a game on Roblox that I frequently play. And that game is called Regretivator. And of course, I adore the game. I love the characters that they make. I love everything about it. And it's a very interesting game, the way they portray a story. But because it's Roblox, even if they wanted to depict a more mature story, they couldn't. Because of the fact that it is accessible to so many children. If I remember right, I remember the Regretivator devs mentioning how they want to have a more mature audience. And it's a strange scenario because, of course, you want the devs to have an audience in which they enjoy, but at the same time, if you're a popular game on Roblox, then that's just like a whole nother can of worms, you know? Because, at least in my experience, when you're dealing with communities on Roblox, you either have to cater towards children or you have to shut down your game. There really is there seemingly is no in between. And do I think that's the end of the world? No, definitely not. I think it's disappointing, but that's a whole nother can of worms that we can talk about either later or another day. But it brings up a really good question because if we take that example of Regretivator and like the devs or like, let's not say Regretivator exactly because I don't want to put words in the devs' mouths without getting 100% confirmation that those words are true. Let's just assume that there's a community that is that was originally catered towards all ages, whether that was by their own choice or not. And then it ended up being picked up and appreciated by, let's just say, people that are way too young to consume that kind of stuff. You thought of like 10 different things, didn't you? It happens a lot, which is a really weird thing because I was thinking about it last night. And some of the videos that I originally made on this channel and some of the videos in that I would interact with were in some way, shape, or form intended for all audiences. And now that I've gotten older, and with age, I've realized that I don't want to have any younger audiences. I'm more comfortable catering to adults. It begs the question of, obviously, the creator is allowed to discern the space in which they create. They're allowed to create a universe or a world, and they shouldn't be forced to cater to an audience that they no longer want to cater to. Which is a very big, a big thing, at least for me, because, like I said, I used to cater to all audiences. But as time went on, I realized that I not only didn't want to do that, but it pretty much made me, not viscerally, but it made me fairly uncomfortable to do that, you know? Like the concept of having to cater towards all audiences, or maybe even cater towards children, just did make me uncomfortable. And being someone who makes videos about Minecraft and streams the game frequently, the concept of having to cater towards children, considering the fact that most of the Minecraft community, when it comes to streamers, influencers, dare I say content creators, is very predatory, to say the least. I think predatory is a very good word for it. But because of that predatory nature, you're sitting there and you want to enjoy someone's content, especially as an adult that interacts with adult spaces. And you interact with those. You interact with those spaces, and you want to make content that's delivered more towards adults. But playing a game that's like that, you got to be very strict about how things work. For example, I'm very strict on my live streams, twitch.tv/itslaneLive. I'm very strict about making sure the mature audience label is on, making sure that people are aware that it is a mature stream intended for mature audiences whenever they hop on. I don't try and sugarcoat it, especially considering the fact that a lot of my time on the internet has unknowingly been with relatively predatory people. So, if not for my own safety, then for the safety of others around me, I have an obligation as a creator and as a streamer to curate that space and make people aware of what they are going to be getting as soon as they access my stream. But, of course, getting a little sidetracked. I feel like streamers, and in general, just people that create content online, Of course, this is a very cold take. Most people that create stuff online agree with this. Um, but I feel like creators should have that ability to decide whether or not their stuff is catered for children or not. Even if they switched from one way to the other and then back. I don't think that uh I think that uh creators owe it to themselves to be honest with themselves about what they want to do, because it's very easy to um fall into a trap of wanting to create stuff and then realizing that, oh, X thing is so much more popular. Um, it's really easy to fall into that because you see, at least in my, like, I've seen it happen to me before. I've seen it happen to friends before, where you pretty much see dollar signs and you're like, oh my god, I can finally be comfortable. Um, and uh I can just, if I like pivot my stuff to be catered towards this or this, then I will be fine and I'll be able to actually have money for creating. When in reality it's a bit different, and it kind of catches you because you have that, you can have a niche, but that niche is not always guaranteed, which sucks. But thus is the nature of the online space. Um, Either way, while I've been talking about this, I've been building a neat little horse stable because our previous horse stable got repurposed. So I've decided to go out of my way to create a new one because I feel like because they were gonna kill all the horses in the stable, and I didn't want that. So making that decision to uh, pretty much make it only uh, or make a specific area in our farm for that, at least in my opinion, was a very good idea. Because I know you don't look at me with those big old eyes. Yeah, that's right. Get out of here. Um, that was my axe. It's not what I wanted to throw out. But yeah, um, curating an online space can be very difficult, especially if you're thrusted into popularity for something that you didn't want to do, whether that was catered towards adults or catered towards children. I've seen it happen before with one of my friends, and they had to make a very difficult decision about how their stuff is perceived. Nuh-uh. You know what? Fuck it. I'll let these guys go up on this, like, tiny little area. No, I'll just put it there. Whatever. Um, but yeah, I've seen it happen firsthand, where like I show someone something, and then like they want to show their audience, and then that audience takes it the wrong way, and because of that, you kind of have to realize, like, oh, this shit's different. Not what I thought it was going to be like. Because then you get perceived in a way you don't appreciate. And then you have to grapple with the concept that any kind of fame that you've gotten from a specific idea is not only not wanted, but one that you have to actively snuff out. I think it's an interesting phenomena because so many people are being a part of the public conscience for the first time, in the way of like actually having an influence over other people. And like for so many hours, some people may be searching for their audience, hoping that that audience is one that they're attached to, that they can work with. But that audience not only never comes, but it's the wrong kind of audience when it does. I think that's a little bit more terrifying. Admittedly, ever since I started streaming and I reached the age of majority, I've wanted to make more mature adult-oriented content. But the communities that I was in when I reached that age kind of prevented me from doing so, which isn't a bad thing. I wouldn't trade missing those communities for the world, admittedly. But it's still one of those feelings that you kind of have to grapple with. And you have to sit there and realize maybe it's not for you. Maybe any kind of success that you've been given, whether that was through the good graces of people you enjoy, or through hard work and perseverance, it's not the kind of success that you've been looking for. And sometimes you gotta just keep looking, which really sucks. You gotta be stubborn with yourself. And admittedly, it's happened a lot with me. Will I say that I miss the community that I was a part of? Definitely. But would I trade what I have now for what I had then? Definitely not. And it's such an interesting thing because before the age of the internet, you wouldn't assume that certain people, when making any kind of content that's to be consumed by other people, ignore the fact that the horses are broken, by the way, I can't fix it. Oh, this guy cannot jump. Mother. But yeah, when people, obviously when people wrote books back in the day, they had to consider what kind of audience they were looking for. But I don't think it was as much the preference of, like, just because the medium that they were writing in had children-oriented things doesn't mean that the medium they were writing in was any less deserving of the mature audience that they wanted to write towards. Like, I want to take one of my favorite examples into play. And of course, this will be speaking from little to no experience of how things were back then. But I wonder how the like the Lord of the Rings books, for example. How like John Rolkin Tolkien felt that like maybe children were reading his books. Were they was he all right with the concept of people doing that? Is it possible that he might have wanted to have only adults read it, and that was like a big point of contention for him? I'm not sure, and it's really interesting to think about because you have, oh, come on. There we go. Because I think streaming is, obviously streaming is less akin to writing a book than it is to being a movie star. But like, do you think that child actors, for example, would had dreams of making more adult stuff? It's relatively, at least in my mind, it's kind of the same thing. Where children, or where you'll have a piece of media that's oriented more towards children, or the otherwise more oriented towards adults, and you have to kind of sit and ask yourself whether or not you want to have it be the other way. Obviously, life moves on while doing stuff like this, but it's something I think about a little bit of an unhealthy amount, because of course it affects me directly. Naturally, I don't want to have I don't want to have my stuff be child oriented, because I'm an adult and I want to make adult stuff. But not only does it beg the question of if I'm allowed to do something like that. Or, but it also begs the question of whether or not that would be good for making content. Because I'm gonna be so honest with you guys. I hate using the word content. I write stories and I stream. And I entertain. I'm an entertainer. But sometimes the best way to describe it is content. Because you can't really change it. Your perception from other people can't be changed outside of you making moves to change it. You know what I mean? I like how I got chains and spruce signs, but I meant to get hanging signs. A bit of a shame, really. I'll have to go and grab more. But, that's what I'm really talking about, is whenever I do make more adult-oriented things, most of the game is dedicated towards telling you how to do it towards children, when I don't want to do that. It's so easy to market towards children, because children don't know what they want, frankly speaking. Why do you think Mr. Beast blew up so much? Not because he was a master businessman. He didn't know how to cater to adults, so he catered to children, because children are easy. And no hard feelings if you are a child. Admittedly. The only reason why people can watch this is because a platform that prefers advertising to children is hosting it. But it's still weird to think about. Because when everything's said and done, at least for me, it's difficult to tell if someone has, if someone's digital footprint is, as large as you would assume. But it's easy to assume whenever you're catering your stuff towards a certain audience that audience would know about your footprint. It's why if you look on my channel, and if YouTube ever makes it so that you can see all of my stuff, even if it's unlisted, you could see very clearly that I have videos from old friend groups, from old times, that have kind of been lost at time, but they're still on this channel. I have multiple different channels I still hold on to, even, that have all of that old stuff on it. And naturally, I don't hold it against anyone to be a certain way about it. It's just, this is mostly a stream of consciousness thing. Which is why when I think about it, it's difficult to think about how my digital footprint is, because I've been through so many different communities that it feels like those communities don't really matter much, admittedly. Even if they've done a lot for me. I've done a lot of building throughout my time in Minecraft. I've done a lot of creating. I've done a lot of streaming. Hell, I've streamed well over, what, 2,000 hours at least? By technicality, I found my audience years ago, but I didn't like that audience. So I'm still looking for a new one. As we all are in this game of life. I consider myself looking for my audience still because of the fact that audiences are so hard to find. Even if there are 7 billion people on the planet, you gotta market yourself a certain way so that the however many people that you'll end up having will find you. And I've seen that happen. The main reason why this came to my mind first, like recently, is because the voice of the angel Gabriel in Ultra Kill, Gianni, had a really big thread talking about how he feels forced into a position where he needs to be child-friendly when that's not what he wants. And admittedly, if I was in his position, I'd be miserable. Because I enjoy the act of creation, and my creative flow goes directly into making more adult-oriented content. So if I felt like I had been interacted with by the wrong audience, or the wrong audience has tried to latch themselves onto me, it would feel like suffocating. Which I guess is my main worry. Is I just don't want to be suffocated by that stuff. Can these guys move out of the way? Thank you. But yeah. I have friends that I make shitposty humor with, and I don't really take things too seriously, and that's fine. But when it comes down to it, I enjoy what I do, because what I do is also what I enjoy, you know? And because social media is so performative, you find yourself feeling like you need to perform a certain way, like a caricature of yourself. To the point where things don't feel right, frankly speaking. For the most part, a lot of the time whenever I'm streaming or recording like I am now, I find myself in a position where I gotta watch what I say depending on what audience I'll assume will see it. But with everything said and done, I could just say whatever and make a stream of consciousness that is completely and utterly my own thought process, and thusly allow myself to cultivate an audience based on that stream of consciousness. This bitch looks like they're from Cult of the Lamb. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. But yeah. It's just been a really interesting thought process for me. Because when it comes down to it, I admittedly don't enjoy streaming unless it has more adult themes. But even then, it's like, what can you really do? But that's the main reason as to why I am an advocate for people creating their own spaces. I mean, naturally, I don't think there's ever someone that doesn't want people to create their own spaces, other than like big name social media companies, because they have an agenda, and part of that agenda is keeping people on their platform. But I'm not going to start talking about that. That's a stream of consciousness I don't want to go down, you know? But it does make you think. Because so many people because so many people spend so much time trying to cater themselves towards a certain kind of person, they tend to worry about what happens if they get the wrong kind of person. I think that also has a lot to do with internal uh, internal thoughts, because a lot of the time I'll sit there and be like, well, is this what I really want? And at first, it takes a lot of time to think about it. Because you got to do a lot of introspection when you're making stuff like... when you're making a decision like that. Like, naturally, it can make you really uncomfortable. Look at this. You look like such a little beepo. You know that? You're adorable. Such an adorable little sheep. But yeah, the thought process requires at least a bit of introspection, where you have to look inside yourself and think, who are you and what do you want? Not what you think is best for yourself, but what do you want? Thank you. These sheep are adorable, but they're also a menace. But yeah, I mean, like, it's a really, like, it's a long thought process that I find myself going down every time I think about streaming. Because a lot of the time when you think about it, you don't really have... you have a choice in the matter, but that choice is something that you have to curate. And I think Twitter going down the shithole, it's a really good example of that, because they force everyone into everyone else's space. And eventually it just becomes this area that you don't want to be in, and people just leave. But yeah, it's been something I've been thinking about an extended amount recently, because naturally when you're when I'm getting back into streaming more often, the first thing I think of is trying to, like, consider whether or not the decision I've made for my audience is good or not. And I think it has been. So if you're watching this video, consider subscribing. Might be a sign that you've found your community. But either way, I think that's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider subscribing. It helps me out a lot. And if you really liked the video, comment down below. Let me know what you thought about my stream of consciousness for today. But until next time, I will see you in the next video. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a good one. I'll see you around. I messed up the Zoom, didn't I? All right, let me just